Do you know what it's like to be a police officer? I certainly don't. What I do know is that it has to be, on a day-to-day basis, the most dangerous and important profession in our society. I also don't know what it's like to be a person of color. I don't know what it's like to be either a cop or a person of color in today's America, where tensions between the police and the black populace are, as we saw in 2015, the stuff of all too frequent headlines. Well, that's why we have artists like my guest Barry Malawer, who's written a play that lets us see both points of view and judge for ourselves just where accountability may lie. I'm Bruce Apar, and this is Hudson Valley WXYZ with Bruce the Blog. Hudson Valley WXYZ with Bruce the Blog is a weekly TV program that brings you people making unique contributions to our community, very interesting people. And we also like to explore ideas and topics and issues that affect all of us and are important to the community. And I thank Chase Media Group for producing the show, and especially its CEO, Carla Chase, and its Chief Strategy Officer, Frank J. Rich. And I want to welcome my guest, Barry Malawer. Barry, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Although we do see each other in our travels around town, and we both live in Yorktown, but we have interests all over the region, believe me. We're not limited to Yorktown at all. And so, Barry, the play you have written that I was referring to is called Dead Dog Park, right?
Correct, yes.
And congratulations, because I saw it, I think it was 4 years ago at Phillipstown Depot Theater in Garrison Landing. Excellent production, excellent play. And now it's going to be put up, as we say, in Manhattan at the name of the theater.
It's 59th East 59th Street. It's actually now officially an off-Broadway show.
Right.
So I made it to the big time.
And you should be very proud because I know how difficult that is. Yeah, that's very difficult.
Yes, we're doing 30 performances from February 11th to March 6th, Tuesday through Sunday, with matinees on Saturdays and Sundays.
And people can go to the website, right?
Yes.
For 15, which is 59E59.org. Yeah. For tickets.
For tickets.
Yeah. And so why don't we let people know in a synopsis form just what the plot of the play is.
Sure. It concerns a white police officer who's accused of pushing a black teenager out of a 4-story window. And the play then follows the microcosm of the people that are involved through the next few years and how the incident affects all of their lives.
Yeah, and we should also make it known to the audience, Barry, that you wrote this play long before 2015, when, as I said at the outset of the show in the cold open, tensions between the black communities in America, many black communities, and between local law enforcement got to be, very, very difficult and troubling.
The situation hasn't really changed over the past 15, 20 years, maybe forever. I originally had thought of the idea for the play back in the late 90s, and I carried around a notebook with me for almost 10 years where I started the play over and over and over again. I must have written the first page 250 times and could never get past the first page.
Really?
And then in 2010, I met an actress, actually, but we like to call them actors, right? I met an actress at my writers group, and I looked at her and I said, "You're the mother, and I'm going to write a scene for you." And I went home and I wrote the scene for her because that was my block. I had to have someone that it wasn't familiar territory to me, so I had to have someone to base it on.
You couldn't embody the character.
That's right. And I wrote that scene for her, and then the play originally was 10 scenes, and then I wrote a scene a night. And I'm not a fast writer, and I'm not a prolific writer, but this play I've been carrying around so long and been thinking about so long that I knew what I wanted to do. So she unblocked me, and I wrote a scene a night for 10 nights. My writers group meets every 2 weeks. I go to the writers group, I hand her the scene that I wrote for her, and I went, Tracy, I wrote this for you. And she goes, I don't care. I don't want to read it. I don't want anything to do with it. Leave me alone.
Really?
And I went, no, I wrote it for you. I wrote this play for you. She said, no. So we eventually had the scenes read in writers group, and I wound up taking the play down to my friend Cynthia Granville at Pelican Arts Theater. She runs a writers group called The Supporting Characters.
Okay.
And
where is Pelican Arts Theater?
In Pelham, New York. Pelham,
okay.
down county.
Okay, right.
And they meet every Monday night. And Cynthia had directed my previous play, a version of Cadillac,
Right. Yes.
down at the Bendham Performing Arts Center
Right.
in Scarsdale. And so she had read it, and she sent it off to her friend Sam Harps at the Shades
Who
Repertory.
directed me in Cadillac.
That's right. Sam's a great guy,
Yeah,
wonderful man.
Oh, he is, yes.
And Sam calls me up and he goes, Barry, I got this play. I don't know how I got it. And I've already cast it, and we're in production, and I hope you can come to opening night. I went, okay, sounds great. Who'd you cast as the mother? Tracy. He cast Tracy McAllister as the mother. And I went, oh, that's very funny. The woman who didn't want to have anything to do with my play, didn't want to have anything to read it or anything else, he cast as the mother.
You know, Barry, if I'm not mistaken, I recently saw a play at the Westchester Collaborative Theater, which is, WCT in Ossining, which
Right.
is, very solid theater company. And I'm pretty sure there was Tracy I saw in the play. And she was excellent actress.
She's wonderful.
A very
I love
good
her.
actress, yeah. So I could see her, knowing this play, Dead Dog Park, because like I said, I saw it at Phillipstown, I could definitely see her being right for that role and doing a great job in it.
Yeah, well, I'm forever grateful to her because she was my muse on this play.
So we should say that the role we're speaking of is the mother of the young man
Right.
who fell or was pushed. That's the whole question, right? Of
Right.
whether
That's the
he was
question of the
pushed
play.
or fell out of the, second floor?
Fourth.
Well, fourth floor, a window of an abandoned
Of
building.
an abandoned building
Right.
in Dead Dog
Yeah.
Park.
And we should also mention, besides, I find these things fascinating when we're talking about fictional works, whether it's a play or a novel or a movie, or that there is a place called Dead Dog Park.
Yes.
It's a real place.
Henry Stern in the
Parks Commissioner.
Commissioners
Right.
in the 60s, 70s.
Right.
It's about 165th Street and Riverside Drive.
Right under the GW Bridge.
Right on that thing. And he said, someone asked him why he named it Dead Dog Park. He says, well, I found a dead dog there, so I named it Dead Dog Park.
Right. And it stuck.
My wife and I were driving. We'd gotten off at Riverside Drive because there was traffic one day, and there was one of those plaques, the park plaque,
Right.
that said Dead Dog Park. Now, I wish I had a picture of it because
it does?
it's
It
since
actually-
gone. It actually said Dead Dog Park.
Wow.
But in the 90s, you didn't have cell phones with cameras. You weren't able to take pictures of it. And I said, oh, that would make a great title for a play. So that stuck with
Oh,
me. They've
wow.
since built the New York Psychiatric Hospital
Right.
on Dead Dog Park, but there is still actually a Dead Dog Park there.
But as there's an article that's posted on the website.
Right, yes.
And it says that there was a certain concession made to the community who opposed the psychiatric hospital because they felt they wanted to obviously retain the park as a nice,
Right.
recreational spot for
So
people
they
to go
fixed
to.
up the park behind it.
Right, and then didn't they build this footbridge?
Yes,
that
they
talked
built
about?
they built a footbridge and they built a park behind it.
That
And,
goes over Riverside Drive?
I don't know if it goes over. It goes up to Riverside Drive.
Right, but I know that area well. I mean, when our late son Harrison was at Columbia Presbyterian, we used to be there frequently.
Right.
That's where it is. It's right
Right there, right there.
west of Columbia Presbyterian on
correct.
Riverside Drive. So no, but that was interesting. It's an actual location, and so now that the people watching know the premise of Dead Dog Park, your play, what was your, let's say, impetus or motivation for writing it? I mean, it's obviously a very even more so now. It's more topical now, somewhat unfortunately, but it's a very sensitive and fragile subject to deal with.
It was less politicized when I started the play, and less politicized when I had the original idea for the play. And the idea for the play was really like, what if the victim lived, who was pushed out the window, but couldn't remember
what happened?
What happened?
Right.
So the only one who knew what happened was the cop.
Right.
And so therefore, it becomes a question of what happens to a person's moment of destiny. You know, there's a turning point in a lot of people's lives. There's a moment that they can't take back.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And there's a moment that will change their lives forever, for good or for bad.
The choices we make.
And sometimes they have absolutely no control over it. But that moment will overwhelm them and envelop them and will propel them through their lives as a turning point. And one such moment would be an incident like this. And then how does that translate into drama, into some sort of psychological drama, and not being able to prove himself and not being able to come to grips with maybe he did push him, maybe he didn't push him. How does he know what his true intentions were in the incident? And how does that affect his relationship with his wife? How does it affect his relationship with his partner on the police force? How does it affect his relationship with the law?
Yeah.
And when he goes when he goes to trial, because what's happening in the whole Black Lives Matter movement is about making policemen and cops accountable for these incidences, for these moments, and what's happening is that there's not enough accountability. So this play was actually prescient because I made the cop accountable.
Right.
Whereas you're seeing a lot of the incidents that came up, unfortunately, after I wrote the play, while it's now being sent through its motions. I mean, I finished the play in 2011, and now we've had Trayvon Martin, we've had Michael Brown, we've had Eric Gardner in New York, you know, and none of the cops are being held accountable for this incident, for this moment. They're all being...
Right. However, you know, again, part of the whole ambiguity that you deal with and explore that we're talking about in real life, as well as in artifice, is that accountability does not equate with being guilty.
No.
Right? At all.
No.
You could be, in the justice system, you could be held accountable for something you didn't do. Right?
Right.
So I think that's all part of...
But that's part of the nature of...
Yes.
We were talking earlier about the idea of Oedipus. And the revelation of Oedipus. The revelation of Oedipus is not that he married his mother and killed his father. The revelation of Oedipus is that don't count your life over till the gods decide what your life is.
Right.
Till your fate is locked into what the gods decide your fate is. Okay.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So again, ultimately it doesn't matter, because this man's fate is what it is because of where he was and what happened,
right,
not what his intention was.
Right.
So unlucky, lucky, whatever it shapes up to be, his intentions were not the necessity, were not the deciding factor of his fate.
And so what it becomes in the real life incidents that you just recounted, that we're all familiar with, and from the headlines in 2015, is he said, she said, or he said, he said,
or he said, then nobody else said. Well, actually,
right,
in the play, there's a witness.
Yes.
Because there's no way that he would have been indicted without a witness.
Right.
There was no way he would have been indicted without a third-party collaboration. Right. So there is a witness. Reliable, not reliable. We don't see the witness in the course of the play. It's not a trial play. It's not about the intricacies of the law. And if it was a movie, maybe. If it was a movie, half the movie would probably be the trial itself.
Right.
But because it's a play, it's not a trial play. It's not about whether he had the right evidence or the grand jury was able to indict him or anything else. It's really more of a play about, are you accountable for the actions in your life, and do you decide your own fate, or do the fates just happen to you? I mean, it's got a larger issue than the intricacies of what would be indictable and not indictable.
Well, I mean, isn't it true? And my mentor, my theater mentor, Howard Meyer, will talk about this, that the mechanics of a play, the dialogue and the characters really are there in the service of exploring big ideas.
Right.
And it's heightened reality, right? It's right.
Right,
That's what
yes,
you're talking
yes.
about. It's all heightened reality. But one of the things that you did very well, Barry, in this play is when you talk about accountability, there's certainly accountability to go around, even involving members of the victim's family,
Right.
that you deal with, and you also bring in the media and how press coverage plays into this type of situation.
You
right?
you have a sense of everybody's motives can be suspect.
Right.
I'm not presenting any pure people here. I'm not presenting any good and evil. I'm not presenting anybody who is without fault.
Right.
So everybody has to take some measure of accountability.
Right.
How they do so and how that affects them is the meat of the play.
Right.
But again, I don't take sides. There's no politics in the play. I don't play politics. I really, the play was specifically structured so that it was two people scenes, two character scenes, so that you got the sense that there were two people resolving an issue between them that was a result of the incident.
Right.
So you have the cop and his partner, you have the cop and his wife, you have the mother and the attorney who is going to represent her interests.
Yes, yeah.
He's not prosecuting, he's not the prosecutor, but he is the attorney who eventually files civil suit.
Right.
There's the motive of money, there's the motive of accountability, there's the just the extreme isolation that this causes both parties. I mean, the mother gets just as isolated because of the incident as the cop does, as the wife does. There's a lot of backlash. There's a lot of fault that falls throughout the course of the play.
Right. And how many years ago then did you write this?
I wrote it in 2010. We did a production at Shades in 2011.
Okay.
And then an actor who saw the production at Shades says, I could do this a little better. I want to play that part. And that was Rick Apicella and Allison Costello from Garage Band Theater, and they took the play over to the Phillipstown Depot Theater.
Oh, so they did.
And the Phillipstown Depot Theater, Amy Rule and the people at Phillipstown Depot, they're wonderful people.
Yes, I know.
They're awesome. They said, we are going to produce this now. You don't have to, we'll produce it. And they don't do that too often, but they loved the script.
Right.
And then they got Chris Nowick involved, and he did a design, just a beautiful, beautiful set. And they did just a smashing job, and the play came clearer, and even I got such tremendous response from the play. I test drove it with a bunch of cops, and I test drove it with a bunch of media people, just to.
Yeah. And by the way, I want to use that as my cue, so to speak, for, I guess this was a letter that you received from a police officer.
Yes, he was a friend of somebody who came to see the show.
Mike P., it doesn't matter right now what his last name is, Mike P. was a police officer.
He was actually involved in the Ahmed, I'm going to get the name wrong, the Diallo incident where the guy took out his wallet.
Amadou Diallo.
Amadou Diallo, a guy who was shot a bunch of times for taking out his wallet. Everyone thought it was a gun. He actually was on that commission that investigated that.
Oh, this police officer.
This police officer.
Right. And so we should mention, so he came to see the play at Phillipstown?
Yes.
Yeah. And I saw it there. And I just want to insert here that if you like theater, Phillipstown Depot Theater, for one thing, the physical space. I love the
great theater.
And I've had the fortune recently of performing there in a one-act festival that, Pat Lennon puts on, the Airy one-act festival.
Right.
And I love performing in that space. But it has that great steeply raked seating, and so every sight line is really good. Anyhow, so this officer who you just described, who was part of the police commission in investigating that incident, not this one, but a real-life incident, so he wrote to you, and I'm just going to read part of what he wrote. I have spoken to mothers who have lost their children to police violence. I cannot for the life of me understand how you could write a play such as this without living it, but you did. And that to me was like, when I was reading this, it was sort of the big reveal.
Right.
You think he's going off to chastise you, say, how dare you? And what he's paying you is the highest compliment from a law enforcement officer.
It was the greatest
saying, how the heck you could understand our point of view, I'll never know, but you did. But you accomplished it.
It was the greatest piece of email I'd ever gotten.
No, it's wonderful. I know. And Anyhow, I just wanted to point out, because he says it in his letter to you, his email, I'm a New York City police officer with over 30 years of service. He was a commanding officer of the 43rd Precinct in the Bronx when 4 white street crime officers shot and killed, well, that's what he talks about,
Right.
Amadou Diallo in 1999. And he said he was a commander. He met with the family, the community. So his experience is extremely parallel to your play,
Right.
to what you wrote in the play. You know, it occurs to me, Barry, just hypothetically, now, in large part as a consequence of all the news headlines in 2015 of this type of relationship or situation we're talking about between the police and black communities, body cameras now have become,
Right.
you know, they're becoming more and more commonplace as we go along. Do you think you would have somehow worked that in if body cameras were
It would have
common?
screwed everything up.
Yeah, I know. It would have made it a lot more challenging for you.
More
Right?
definitive for.
Right. Yeah, but that, it just occurs to me, that makes
Right.
gives it even another layer or another dimension. So, and you mentioned the other plays that you've written are, you know, they say the axiom in writing is write what you know,
Right.
right? And you've written 3 plays, right? Your trilogy about your family and your
Right, yeah.
growing up on Long Island.
So I got
right?
Chrysler, Cadillac, and Tokyo Dreams.
Right.
Which you had did a wonderful reading of it for me.
Yeah, right.
Wonderful.
Tokyo Dream. Yeah, and Cadillac was a lot of fun too, playing your father. So it's interesting that Dead Dog Park is obviously a divergence from writing about your family.
Well, I've run out of things to say about my family.
Okay, so that's it.
I'm done.
and I guess they're not disappointed about that, are they?
No. And my kids are cool, so I don't have to write about them. They're not screwing things up yet.
So do you have something in mind about whatever you might be writing next? And
Yeah, I actually do, but
you don't want to talk about it.
no. Actually, I do, but I did want to mention there's the incredible thing is my daughter's a very insightful person, as you know.
Sydney.
Yes. And
wonderful person.
she told me about this play. This is an ambition of mine to be a legitimate writer.
I know, and you're an excellent
I
writer.
do. This is an ambition since high school, and she said that you have to let this go. But Dad, you just have to. Don't try to manipulate it. Don't try to force it. Just let it go. Let the universe speak to you, and the universe will take the play where it needs to go. And it took the play and put it into the hands of Frank Avellino and Steve Haas at Bose in the Bard Theater in New Jersey. And it
Okay.
got to this theater in New Jersey, this small little theater company in New Jersey. And Frank Avellino was deciding that he wanted to make his bones as a New York City producer. And he fell in love with my script, and I have to kiss his ring, because this man is now our fates are intertwined. Because after seeing the production at Shays, and he saw the production at Phillipstown, he decided to option the play.
Oh, okay.
So he has worked for the past 3 years to get up a production in New York, and this is a big deal. It's a big deal to have an off-Broadway show.
Believe me, it's a huge.
You look at.
I wouldn't say it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. It really is.
And
it's a huge deal.
Whatever happens, it could stop here, and I'd be thrilled that I got this far.
Right,
This is like a dream for me, and Frank and Steve worked they're just such wonderful and beautiful people, and they decided to make their bones on this play, and they've been working tirelessly to raise money. I mean, we raised $100,000 to do this production in New York City, which is, someone
from
wrote a
just
check.
Private investors, and things like that.
It was actually a single investor, and now, in order to capitalize on this, if it was going to move forward, we're going to have to raise $1 million, $2 million to do it.
Yeah,
And the fact that people are investing money in something I wrote is very, very humbling to begin with. But Steve then went ahead and said, okay, Frank and Steve went, what do we do now? How do we move this forward? And we have to find a director. And we went scouting for a director, and Frank and Steve see everything, and they saw a company in the city called Bedlam Theater, and Bedlam Theater is now one of the babies of New York. I mean, they do such brilliant productions, but they've been doing classics. So I saw a production of Hamlet that they pared down to 4 actors, and it was absolutely brilliant. And Eric Tucker, who's the director, was absolutely brilliant. He played Hamlet. He directed the piece.
Wow.
These people were fluid. It wasn't a gag. It wasn't silly. It illuminated the play and made everything hyper focused and hyper real. And it was just brilliant. And they did the same thing with St. Joan. They did the same thing with Twelfth Night.
Isn't St. Joan George Bernard Shaw?
Yeah, and they cut that down to 4 actors, and they did St. Joan and Hamlet in repertoire. So they had to memorize these 2 entire scripts,
that's great.
and they got noticed. It's brilliant. They're currently doing a production in the city of Sense and Sensibility. They did an adaptation of Sense and Sensibility. They did it last year. It was so acclaimed. They brought it back now, and it's actually going up. So tickets are on sale for their production of Sense and Sensibility. You can go to Bedlam on Facebook and check it out. We saw the production last year, and it was just brilliant. Oh my God, it was just.
But isn't it? By the way, with what you're saying, Barry, and both you and I maybe come at theater from slightly different angles, and you have infinitely more experience than I do. But I'm learning to love theater more and more as a theater goer and as an aspiring actor and things like that. But isn't it true and interesting that a lot of the very finest actors, and like speaking especially to people watching the audience, a lot of the very finest actors have names you never heard of. It's really true.
Yes.
I wrote something the other day on Facebook saying, I think maybe it's after the Oscar nominations came out, saying, and then also about the passing of Alan Rickman, who was a really, like as one obituary called a magnetic actor. He really was, but he was very natural and real. But how the British don't breed stars. In fact, it's almost like an anti-star system. What I said is they breed disciplined thespians who then come over here and, quite frankly, in almost every case, I don't want to say embarrass American actors or stars, but there's no comparison.
It's a different type of training.
It's a different style.
It's a totally different type of training. And I was talking to my wife Jill the other night that it's Americans learn to emote.
Right.
British actors learn the technicality of emotion.
Oh, the technique is incomparable.
So Americans learn to emote. You can't. The British actors can't handle the emotional quality that American actors can.
Yeah.
Okay? But
I see. Okay, that's interesting.
They can handle the technicalities of acting. So their technique is flawless, but they don't have the ability to break through their technique to get that raw emotion that American actors can get.
Oh, okay.
So you look at Sean Penn, you look at the great American actors.
Yeah.
They're able to bring an emotion that's raw, that they're trained to understand.
Ryan Gosling is very good.
They're trained in a different way.
I see what you're saying.
So it's
That's
a different way of thinking.
Right.
But you can take a stage actor and make a good movie actor out of a stage actor. But you can't take a movie actor and make a good stage actor out of a movie actor.
And the way that I, failure or not, judge really good, the best American screen actors is if they have the courage to go on stage, especially on Broadway, where you're emotionally naked.
But if you're a good film actor and you're going to go to Broadway, there's a real possibility you're going to fail.
Yeah. Well, Tom Hanks, he sort of flirted with that.
Well,
in the
Bruce
play
Willis in Misery didn't. I mean,
we got to wrap it up. Time's up. But it seemed like it was 5 minutes, but it was actually 30. But we'll have you back, Barry, because it's fascinating. I know you and I love talking about this stuff. So, and again, Dead Dog Park by Barry Malawer in Manhattan at the 59 East 59th Street Theater. That's 59e59.org. If you can get in to see it, I really recommend it because
find us on
play.
Facebook at Dead Dog Park. We have a Facebook page too.
Okay. All right, and I want to thank my guest, playwright Barry Malawer. And next time I want to ask you about maybe writing about real estate. I think there's this guy called David Mamet who did a pretty good job with Gary Glenn Ross. It's like one of the great works in theater that keeps getting put up by different community groups. And thank you for watching Hudson Valley WXYZ with Bruce the Blog. And remember, when Bruce the Blog listens, people talk and write. Thank you.